Hey everybody, welcome back to the Game Tower, and today I'm bringing you the top 13 games of 2018. Right now in front of me are a few honorable mentions. I've got a couple more to bring up as well, but these are the ones that are actually in my collection. So let's start off with The Estates is a very good closed or fixed economy area controlled game that builds tension as it goes along. Because each round before a player takes their action, they can tuck $1 million check away and keep it for later for endgame scoring. And there's never any new money introduced into the game, so it's this perpetual auction of winding down prices, which makes it excellent. It's a beautiful production, especially if you've got the Kickstarter, as I have here. And if you want to see, this is what the retail version will look like without the fancy Kickstarter box sleeve. Everdell is another runner-up, although a lot of people quite like this game. For me, it's a Terraforming Mars replacement. Now, what I mean by that is that it's another tableau building, engine building game that is hybrided with worker placement rather than area control. And the way that Everdell does it better is that there's the open meadow where you can build the cards that are available in that meadow, and they're open for any player. So that way you're not locked into the cards that you get based on the random draw. Everdell also features a really nice round turnover cleanup mechanism. Some people say it detracts from the theme, but to be quite honest, I don't mind that it kind of twists reality a little bit in that players are in different seasons. It really flows smoothly and it makes for very interesting strategic choices as to when you want to pass from one season to the next. What really grabbed me about Everdell is the amazing artwork and the theme and how it comes to life with that you're building buildings to get critters to come and reside in those buildings. And just overall it sings really nicely, although it's not too complex and not too far of a stretch off of the beaten path that we've seen in recent gaming design. Sailing Towards Osiris is another one that I feel is really under the radar for 2018. It's a worker placement game that includes negotiation as well as open trading and special action cards that can actually get cancelled out if other players play them at the same time. There's also different worker types in Sailing Towards Osiris. The master workers allow you to gain access to areas of the board that are not yet open and available for your other workers, which will all be placed in behind the boat, which also is the round tracker, and then by the end of the game the whole board will be open, which is a really nice twist to a worker placement because it's got a contracted and then expanding board, which the board also shrinks as the game goes on as players build buildings into the locations that are actually the worker placement spots. Really great, unique worker placement game. Worth checking it out. Sailing Towards Osiris. My two other honorable mentions I want to bring up are Race to the Newfoundland. It's another disguised worker placement game where your ships are actually workers and you can buy more ships that have different abilities, but the abilities or traits of each ship are used with different locations on your player board where you pre-plan your worker phase and then you execute those actions with those ships in those spots. The two main things you're doing in the game that you're competing with the other players for are area majority scoring on the islands as well as some track racing. It's really unique. It's a game that at first I wasn't really enamored with, but it grew on me and I really quite like it. It's just because it's a European import game, its price point is a little higher than how much I like it. And the last honorable mention I want to make is going out to Architects of the West Kingdom. It's a really, really unique twist on worker placement in that you have a massive pool of workers and every turn you only place one out. So you're never really running out of workers, but it also isn't a giant advantage to having more workers. The reason why you have a massive pool is that your workers can get arrested by the other players or captured, and then they can get sent to prison where you can either break them out of the prison tower or you can break them free from other players keeping them captive. Aside from that, it's a pretty bog standard grab resources, build buildings, or build other characters that help your engine works more smoothly or to a greater benefit and efficiency of actions. The other one really nice thing about Architects of the West Kingdom is price point. It's a rather reasonably priced game for how much game you get in the box and the quality of the components. Lots of nice wood components in that game. But That's enough for the honorable mentions. Let's push these suckers aside and get to the top 13. Whoa, wait a second. One honorable mention I forgot to include during filming is the excellent 3D tableau builder, Reef. Now, Reef is another member of the popular trend of Splendor Killer style of games that are light, easy to engage with, have an abstract aspect to them, but provide a very interesting amount of choices and depth for the players to engage in. What stands out about Reef, compared to all the other sort of Splendor Killers that have been published recently, is that it not only has many ways to score points, it also offers the players the opportunity to build towards a larger score and hold off to try to establish that huge combination, or to score in small spurts with trickle by trickle. As each round you're going to play one of your cards, and those cards are going to tell you to build something and then give you an opportunity to score. You don't have to capitalize on the scoring, but you can certainly build up for something big on your player board that makes for a huge amount of points. Reef. It's definitely worth checking out, and it's an excellent offering from 2018. Starting off in our 13th spot is the heavy jumbo 10th anniversary edition of Container. Now, you might say that Container's an old game and doesn't really belong as a new game for 2018, but I would not have experienced Container if it wasn't for this reprint, because it was so rare of a Grail game that it needed the reprint for it to gain more access to the eager public. As far as the game goes, Container is an amazing market simulation where you're going to be manufacturing, buying, selling, and shipping goods. And you're going to be doing all of that to try and maintain a profitable business, or at least a business that has a functioning amount of revenue to keep your objectives going. And then you're just going to try and be the most profitable player at the end of the game. It seems really straightforward, but there's a lot of depth, good amount of complexity that isn't too hard to grasp, although you do need to understand that you want to be able to offer your opponents the goods that they want, and not just produce, purchase, and move the resources that you are most interested in. So, without going into it any further, Container is a great market simulation, and if you like the idea of trying to become the most profitable business entrepreneur, then Container is the game for you. Coming in at number 12, you gotta reach back into the past for Crusaders Thy Will Be Done. Yes, it is a 2018 game, but I'm speaking of the past, as that it pays tribute to the ill history of the Crusades. Crusaders is an amazing game because of the rondel mechanism that was partially inspired by Trajan, which is up there in my Steffenfeld shelf. And one of the main aspects of the game is the 5 tech trees that you're going to be building through your action selection on your player board, which reciprocate with their own actions to build an engine of doing that specific action even more powerfully and more efficiently. But it's its own unique game. It stands on its own legs. It's a great game that plays like a heavier game, but in a lighter game weight as well as time frame. What I love the most about Crusaders is the Rondel Mancala action selection mechanism that fuels your entire game. It's how you drive points, it's how you build your engine, it's how you take over area on the board and conquer enemies as well as build buildings. The game plays nice and smooth and quickly without being too heavy or too burdensome, which might leave you wanting more. With the hat tip to Trajan that Crusaders gives, it makes you think it's going to be a lot heavier or deeper of a game, but it isn't, and that isn't necessarily bad because it's quite refreshing. So once again, my number 12, Crusaders Thy Will Be Done. Now, if you're familiar with the Thunderstone series, then Quest needs no introduction. Thunderstone Quest is the next evolution in the Thunderstone series that's a definitive upgrade upon Advance, which was the second iteration of Thunderstone. What Thunderstone is a deck-building RPG game. Quest does it excellently as a significant improvement over the previous iterations. In Quest, you get a good sense of adventuring feel, rather than just a streaming dungeon of monsters coming at you, although it still lacks that true exploration. The other thing that Quest does significantly better over the previous versions of Thunderstone is that it offers you as players multiple worker placement spots to choose different actions when you go to the village, which just adds an abundance to the game. Those choices are very enriching. You can choose a specific spot that allows you to upgrade 2 heroes per turn, rather than prior in Advance you can only upgrade 1 hero. And so overall, it's definite upgrade on Advance, is worth getting, unless you're still holding on to your Advanced collection, at which point I would say it's fine to hold on to, but Quest is definitively a step above. Coming in at number 10 is Coimbra. Coimbra is board game mechanism gumbo done to perfection. It combines dice, cards, and majority action tracks coupled together with engine building and a point smorgasbord. That's right, it's not a point salad, it's a point smorgasbord, because there's so many ways to score in this game, so many ways to do well, and really beautiful and interesting choices every game you play that gives you this elaborate array of scoring through all these different mechanisms that are all very well blended. Coimbra does what it does like no other game, and no other game is such a perfect intertwining of all these different mechanisms that all work towards the same end goal. Next at number 9 is one of the few games on this list that I do not own a copy of because it is a European import and is hard to acquire. But that game is Underwater Cities. Now you might notice Underwater Cities coming up on a lot of top 10 game lists of 2018, and there's good reason for it. Vladimir Suchy is a great designer and he's put together another excellent game. Some would compare it to Terraforming Mars in that it's a card worker placement game that fuels a dome-building, resource-producing player board, trifected by a tableau building via hand management with those cards that you're playing as workers. Overall, it's a great game with lots of depth that I only scratched the surface on, and I can't wait to play it again. Venturing in at number 8 for a swift dose of justice is Robin Hood and the Merry Men. What do I love about this game? It's a semi-cooperative worker placement game with tons of modes and just dripping with theme. It also involves player hero powers as well as the arrest and liberation of your workers and the ability to expand or possibly reduce your worker pool. So you do have to manage your pool a lot tighter than you do in, say, Architects of the West Kingdom. Another nice feature that Robin Hood and the Merry Men brings to the table is that it uses that same build an object and gain a kickback benefit every single round following. Another thing that I love about Robin Hood and the Merry Men is that you have hidden endgame goals that you do have to send a worker to the Crusades, or Merry Men, that is, so that you can choose to score one of those 3 end goals, and you also don't have to make that choice until the end of the game, which allows you to be flexible and dynamic in your strategy throughout the game. Really, really excellent semi-co-op. Semi-co-op's a style of game I quite enjoy, and this really sings for me on a lot of levels. Number 8, Robin Hood and the Merry Men. Tumbling down to the 7th spot on this list is the roll and write game Ganz Schön Clever. Now, I've been very adverse to roll and write games for a long time. Not really sure why, other than I don't like sort of destroying components, or it must be my meticulous personality that I don't like the details of how it looks when you write all over a game. However, Ganz Schön Clever doesn't cause that issue to come up because you're mostly crossing things out. So you're filling up the board, but not really destroying it. If that makes sense, I hope. One of the reasons I love it, which might be a cause for you to not enjoy it, is that it's a very mathy game. It's still a great game, and that it keeps all players engaged, regardless whose turn it is. Because when a player is rolling their dice, and when they choose an action, you can choose to take a bonus action if you've collected them. You can also choose an action at the end of every other player's turn. So you're getting this multitude of actions that you have to stay aware of and on top of to make those decisions at multiple places in each round. And another thing I like about Ganz Schön Clever is that You can play it in a really relaxed mood and just cross off boxes, or you can truly grind out the math and decide what is the most efficient way for you to score points, and the game will reward you for either strategy. Of course, the person who grinds it out is probably going to be more successful, but it's still enjoyable even if you're not being very competitive when playing. Now for number 6, we need to go to ancient China, because there you will find the Forbidden City, which is also known as Gugong. Now, as you can see, I have the deluxe version of Gugong, and it is gorgeous. The production is top-notch, off the charts. Game Brewer really outdid themselves with this game, and the design as well. So hats off to them. What do I love about Gugong? Well, it's another twist on worker placement that's really unique and really brilliant. And that is, it's a card worker placement game. It's also one of the games from 2018 that screams elegance, which is an excellent running pattern through 2018's finest titles. With Gugong's card worker placement, you have multiple or many paths to victory, lots of different strategies to explore. It's very enjoyable, it's easy to learn, easy to teach, easy to engage with, but deep in its decisions that you're going to make throughout the game, every single game. And I have no problem coming back to this game. I enjoyed it very well at 2, maybe not as much at 5, but it's still an excellent experience. That's Gugong. Sneaking in at number 5 is Root, and its absolutely adorable expansion, The River Folk. Root is this cute and cuddly, smash face, dudes on a map, area control game with absolutely unique factions that all have an intrinsic exponential system that's running ahead to try and win the game in a landslide victory fashion. The beauty of Root is that each player can attack that leader and hold them down to maintain the balance within the forest and all the forest creatures. It truly is a game of many games with absolute asymmetry between factions, but a balanced design with an abundance of theme. The other non-obvious thing that Root is amazing at is that it's great whether you're teaching new players and playing with experienced players, or just playing with experienced players, or even playing with all new players. The reason is because the factions vary in their difficulty and strategic depth. Each player is given their board, which has their setup and rule summary on the back, and then your entire turn summary and all your actions on the front. So once you're set up, you're ready to go. You don't need the back, although there are some beneficial explanations you want to read first if you're learning that faction. Because there are so many factions to play in Root, it has an incredible amount of replayability in that you'll want to try and gain victory with each different faction and how entirely uniquely it plays. And of course, the cutesiness of the theme just sells the game through, despite how vicious of teeth that it has. Once again, number 5, Root. Keeping Root at bay and settling in at the number 4 spot is Teotihuacan. Now, Teotihuacan is a dice worker placement rondel game that's the spiritual successor to Tzolk'in. Teotihuacan boasts of a multiplicity of paths to victory. Both the artwork and the game design boast a beautiful elegance that is one of the best games of this year. It also has huge replayability due to the random setup, and it's as brilliant as Tzolk'in while being a lot easier to engage with because the depth isn't as hardy due to the board being mainly one large rondel. So that's number 4, Teotihuacan. Fresh off the seas at number 3, it's Endeavor, Age of Sail. Endeavor, Age of Sail screams sublime. Everything in this game sings together so well. I know it's a reprint of an older game, but they did revamp it and cleared away all of the errors that were existing in the original design. Overall, it combines worker placement with dudes on a map for area control and engine building, where you're also racing up tracks on your own individual player board to boost your traits that allow you to execute actions in the game. Despite previous criticisms Endeavor does a great job of handling slavery in that it's mostly a type of card. It is a detriment. You will have negative points at the end of the game, regardless if you engage in slavery at all. For each slavery card you get, that's going to be a negative point at the end of the game. If you get to the bottom of the deck for the European continent, you will abolish slavery, and that can be an attack on your opponents to rid those cards out of their engine, which only has limited space, so they'll be forced to have to go out and replace all of their production that they were depending upon from the slavery. It's got gorgeous production, especially with the Kickstarter Deluxe version, although the art and the components are still going to be great in the base retail game. And the other thing that makes Endeavor so sublime is that the player boards have a perfect round order summary and action summary right within them. Each round you build a building, and that's your turn counter for the game. It's amazingly, elegantly, and sublimely executed. One of the best games of the year. Number 3, in fact. Endeavor, Age of Sail. Now you're going to have to reach up high to the evening stars to get our second best game of 2018, Imaginarium. Why do you got to reach up to the nighttime stars? It's because Imaginarium is a game about building dreams. Now, the theme is accused as being pasted on, but that's only because the flavor text is divided up within the rulebook into each heading and section. So in order to get the full flavor of the theme, you do have to read the rulebook cover to cover. Regardless of that point of contention, Imaginarium is still a pure and perfect engine builder of a game. It has a perfect turn order, worker placement, counterbalance mechanism where going first will cost you the most, and going last can get you some extra Charcoalium, which is the money resource of the game, that will fuel all of your engine building endeavors. The artwork is most definitely gorgeous, although it's slightly creepy with some of the animal hybrids that are your workshop assistants. It also has the creepy open mouth cruncher where you recycle or scrap your machines for benefits. It also has a good amount of player interaction with the attack and defense cards, as well as with jockeying for which cards are coming out in the bric-a-brac conveyor belt. Imaginarium has a whole host of strategies that are mainly centered around the project's goals that are dealt out at the start of the game, but point scoring can be found in multiple ways, as even I've found opponents using the strategy of simply crunching down your cards for points to be a viable one for victory. As Prefra mentioned, the attack cards do allow opponents to steal from or hinder the actions of other players, but there's nothing that has too much bite into it that one player is going to heavily affect the other player's engine or strategy. Imaginarium is an engine builder that does everything that you want out of an engine builder and does it well without going too far in any direction, whether it's player interaction or a lack of player interaction. It's my number 2 of 2018, Imaginarium. Coming in at number 1 of 2018 is the absolutely gorgeous Feudum. Now, what do I love most about this blindingly beautiful board game? It's not just that it's a 4X, dudes on a map, area control conquest. It's the elegant clockwork mechanisms of the 6 guilds that's laid upon this 4X foundation, and the tenuous symbiotic relationship that those guilds bring to the game with how players who are in control of them utilize or even restrict their actions. The tenuous, symbiotic, and interwoven circular relationship between those 6 guilds hangs in the balance dependent upon each guild master's behavior. Mark Swanson's masterpiece answers the call for a Euro equivalent to the Ameritrash Twilight Imperium, and it does it in fine fashion. Learning Feudum is a bear, but when you break it down, it really can be summarized in an 11-card action deck, of which you'll choose 4 actions per round and play those actions one at a time in turn order. However, the layers of depth, strategy, point scoring, and gameplay are what make Feudum such a sublime and intricately interwoven, beautiful experience of board game. Much like Twilight Imperium, it is a long playtime and requires a time investment, but it's absolutely worth it. Better than any other game I've ever played. And you can't say that very often, especially about a brand new game from a brand new designer. However, he spent a decade developing it, and it really shows. My favorite game of 2018, and maybe all time, Feudum. Well, that's it for me here at the Game Tower. I hope you enjoyed the video and liked my selections. Let me know if you agree or disagree, or if there's other games that I didn't get to play in 2018 that you yourselves think are better than the choices I've made. So let me know. Hit like, share, subscribe. I appreciate all the support that I get from everyone who watches my videos. Thanks, and we'll see you at the next one. Peace.